Hello, and welcome to the Central Coast Poetry Shows, and I'm your host, Jim Russo. My reason for producing this show is this. For about 10 years, I've been reading and attending poetry readings all over California's Central Coast, and during that time, I've had the privilege of hearing and seeing some very talented poets read their own words. This show is to be a platform for those poets to be seen and heard by you. My first guest this evening is Dennis Richardson. Dennis was born and raised in Santa Cruz, California. After having served his 2 years of active duty in the Navy, he returned home to marry and study at San Jose State University for a teaching credential in mathematics, and later a master's in family and child counseling from JFK University. How he fell in love with poetry, he doesn't know, but he loves metaphors in a poem that make the poem somehow come alive, like Mary Oliver's Wild Geese. So what I'd like to do now is introduce you to Dennis. Welcome, Dennis.
Well, thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you.
So what I'd like to talk about is with you is that you've been the host of a reading in San Jose for about 15 years, and it's a reading that I attend, and it's called the Willow Glen Poetry Project,
Yes.
if I'm correct. And there's a group of about 30, 40 people that attend every month.
Just about,
And we
yeah.
all get to read a poem and enjoy each other's, and along with a feature poet, when you've had some marvelous features. So what I want to do with this show is to invite everyone in San Jose and the Bay Area to know that there's a reading every third Thursday
Yes.
at the Willow Glen Library in Willow Glen. And it begins at 7 o'clock. And be there without fail. It's a great group. I've really enjoyed it. I've been going there
Yes.
for I don't know 5 or 6 years now, off and on. But I want you to talk about it instead of me telling everybody about it. So whatever you can say about your poetry reading at Willow Glen, please.
Okay. Well, it's such a privilege to be there. I did fall in love with poetry in New Jersey at the Poetry Festival. And I think Billy Collins was a strong mover there for me. And then I began to write poetry, and it's part of my life now. And I try to have a poem to read for the open mic after the reader has finished, and we have a little refreshment. And there were two of the poets long time ago said, we're missing all of these poems where nobody's taken them down anywhere, so they don't go anywhere.
Right.
And they decided to head a group of two to have the poetry, what do we say now? You said it.
The blog?
The what?
Submit them to the blog?
Submit them to the blog. We wanted a blog so we could submit them to the blog, and then we could print them in a book. And so every year we come out with a poetry book from they're the ones that started it. And it's been really good. Thank you.
What I'd like to do now is ask you a question that I ask all my poets.
Yes.
Of all the poems you've written, do you have a favorite?
I do.
And what is that?
Well, it's this one right here called The Exit Interviews,
Okay.
Apollo Continuation High School.
Okay. We've talked about that. Well, what I'd like you to do, Dennis, now is if you can step to the podium, read that poem first.
Okay.
And then give us all you've got. So,
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Richardson.
Thanks. This first poem is about Apollo High School, Continuation High School. It's sort of an adult ed for students who want to graduate high school, but they don't have enough credits. So they come to us, and when they earn their credits, we set up a time for our graduation. But before that, we want to send them off after they've completed their credits with our thanks and with the knowledge of what they have done. So, my first poem, The Exit Interviews, Apollo Continuation High School. Two students, polished and wrapped, sit nervously across from us. There's two of us that they talk to. Unsure of this exit interview, their first and probably only. It's a time of completion before graduation, of counting the rings of growth, remembering the beginning, anticipating the future. They're the real young people who make up this land of plenty, where others seem to have so much more. They come with only a hope. Learning to trust, their first lesson, perhaps the hardest, comes slowly with care. Responsibility always a shadow away. Now, they don't even look or sound the same. Wanting to go out and be somebody, to give back to the world they hated and feared, to help someone else grow like they have. They don't know that the exit interviews are really for us, to marvel at the changes we've seen them make, to reminisce and cry over our coming loss of these students who only yesterday came to us thinking they were failures. It brings a very tight emotion to me to read this. My next poem is, you might call it a forward and a backward poem. The title, So It Seems. There is the blue of the sky. The little bird can't wait to try. So many ways to fall and fall. The hardest thing, to love it all. People singing everywhere, though not a song that I can share. So it seems they sing for one, the father thankful for a son, the hard work never done. The father thankful for a son, so it seems they sing for one, though not a song that I can share. People singing everywhere, the hardest thing, to love it all. So many ways to fall and fall. The little bird can't wait to try. There is the blue of the sky. My next one I wrote happened in our backyard. Cottage poems. Down the stone path, past the heliotrope, its purple gaze on one side, the other a gold-streaked pond. She enters her cottage, freshly painted some time ago, only now being inhabited with small pieces of love and memories. There to sit by the open window, letting the words find their way to the poem she wants to write, probably about gentle things, little children singing their learning songs, busy in their world of new, as she is, imagining a place where only she can go and do the magic that makes feelings come alive. We sat like boats docked at a pier, bobbing like fragile flames, silence folded into soft corners. And after the words have rocked themselves together, she'll sit while they settle their ways, as they always do, night singing its starry song on naming the animals for Marie Howe. Everyone forgets that Adam was new to this, that he had just been touched by God and was still a little tingly, surprised even by his own voice, but it was something the Lord said he had to do. So as the sun rose on this, the sixth day, his side still killing him, he looked about for Eve and found a note that said something about a snake. Just then, the ground began to shake. There were roars and cries he had never heard before. Breakfast would have to wait. I can just see him there now, presiding at the line of the nameless as it formed according to height, parrying questions from those penguins about how to fly with those wings, sensing how disgruntled the donkey was at being called an ass. Eve stopping by with something named apples, the just named horses loving them, mentioning something to me about new tallow candles as she left. Imagine how bewildered and tired he must have felt returning home so late, and his reluctance to go with Eve to the bedroom to have something she had just named sex. Thank you very much.
Dennis Richardson.
Thank you.
My next guest, David Eisbach, was born in Minnesota when the drums of war were sounding in Europe. His youth passed in Illinois, and he served in the Marine Corps. He received degrees from San Jose State College, taught high school, became a realtor, and served on the San Jose Arts Commission. David was drawn to the Willow Glen Poetry Group and continues to participate in the Third Thursday poetry readings and open mic. He wanted poets to go into the community to spread the gift of poetry, so he joined a small band of poets who formed the Willow Glen Poetry Project blog and published 3 anthologies in which he has poems. David's connection with Noon Arts and Lectures allowed him to enlist poets and present their 40 minutes of poetry at various venues. Mission Chamber Orchestra's noteworthy desserts fundraisers presented the same chances. In 2015, David brought the San Jose Poetry Festival to life, the last one in 2007. He led the 2016 festival with the support of Poetry Center San Jose. For marketing, David accompanied some of the festival presenters to KKUP radio to read poetry and give interviews. He has brought poetry readings to the Quilt and Textile Museum and the Trianon Theater in San Jose, where he organized eclectic poetry in the art gallery. David is currently gathering poems for his first book. Now I'd like to introduce you to my friend David Eisbach. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like you to talk about, Dave, about the Poetry Project in San Jose and all that you guys are doing, please.
Right. Thank you, Jim. The Poetry Festival, when I was serving as the Arts Commissioner, when the Poetry Festival came, the last one had been in 2007. And it was headed by Sally Ashton, who was quite active and is still active and so on. So in 2015, then, I organized it on my own, and we pulled together a group of people, and like your organization, nobody got paid. So it was a miracle, and we held that at the Trianon Theater. And the 2016 was with the full support, grant support and everything of the Poetry Center San Jose. And they did a wonderful job. And it's, as you had mentioned, our marketing efforts were widely held and successful. And we held this down at History Park, where our Markham House is located, that the Poetry Center maintains. And so that was 2015. And 2016, I kind of stepped back, and because there were a lot of things that I wanted to do and to go. But they used this last year, 2017, we had 2 days. It was Saturday only before. Now it's 2 days. The second days were divided into workshops. And Nils here, who read earlier, had been involved in all 3 of them. So again, it is a group that some of the main swell of creativity and people who have volunteered comes from our Willow Glen group, the Willow Glen Poetry Project that meets in the Willow Glen Library on the 3rd Thursday of every month. So we invite everybody to come.
The festival is in October?
The festival is in October, probably.
Every year, ongoing,
yeah.
I wanted to make that point so everyone can put that on their
Right.
calendar.
The very first one we held in April. And of course, April is the month of poetry,
Fest, yeah.
and every poet was doing something else. So it was kind of a catchy time. So since that time, it's been September, and the last one was in October, and we're working on it now.
Okay. Well, we're running out of time here. So what I'd like to ask you is a question I ask all my poets that guests is, of the poems you've written, do you have a favorite?
I do have a favorite. It's called Jasmine.
Okay. I'm going to ask you, David, to step to the podium and read that poem first, and then give us whatever else you have.
Thank you.
Thank you. David Eisbach, please. Ladies and gentlemen.
Jasmine. Jasmine has scaled the fence and the juniper beyond. A milky way of bloom appears on darkened green. Like whitecaps on a sea, surging cream-colored stars disperse the jasmine scent, indelible, unforgettable. When tender tendrils find nothing more to grasp, they cling to each other for stability and light, hoping to climb forever. Back then, I don't recall humidity or the scorching sun. I do remember blackberries in buckets more than one, beside dusty gravel roads where weeds and thistles grow. Grasshoppers spit tobacco, spread their wings, and go. The baseball games we played on bumpy fields with little grass, hide and seek and kick the can long after sundown passed. It was a quiet time back then, a time before TV. A touch of orange in lemonade was such a treat for me. Evening in Grandma's yard, back and forth on the swing. The fireflies were everywhere, blinking beacons on the wing. The crickets and the cicadas' song made such an awful din. Too soon, too soon. Reluctantly, I had to go in. Dawn. When I awake ahead of the sun and greet the world before me, all is rest, silent and still. The golden orb lifts the curtain to beauty, defines the mountain's unique crown and the trees along its hem. Scrimshaw prints from cat, raccoon, and jay etch the deck's heavy dew. A lone gull with somewhere to go skims the misty mist. And as evening shadows wane, a banana slug way off course doesn't protest my help. A hummingbird in iridescent clothes dives, hovers, then rests upon a twig. A platoon of bush tits darts into a tree, begins their joyous toil just to please me. Joy unbound. The little blue-eyed boy with flaxen hair, tan corduroy, blue shirt, and matching sneakers came running toward me. His shoes slapped the concrete. His body was subject to awkward jolts like a novice in a foot race. His smile was just short of laughter. Pure excitement streamed from his face, with joy enough to raise the moribund. Too small to drink, he pressed the fountain's button, wet his fingers, and stuck them into his mouth. Without ever looking at me, he spun around and raced back to his mother, his grin still intact. The spare tea. Before putting my clubs away, I find one golf tee in my pocket with knife, pen, coins, and keys. Having no worldly use for it, I weigh the effort needed to fight my way into my garage-bound bag. I place it in my desk drawer, the one with the mini sprinkler heads, bolts, odd-sized screws, a spring from a ballpoint pen, and a little plastic piece that fell off from an old printer. It's a kind of a purgatory for small items, waiting for the time of reunification, like all those things I meant to do, but didn't. The far edge of night. There's shadeless dark, and sleep has left the room. Bare feet embrace the cold oak floor and recoil. My robe is old, I'll need another soon. Ground beans are measured, water comes to boil, refrigerator's hum joins the coffee's refrain. These are the only sounds that break the silence. Silhouettes of trees emerge from the terrain. Crows slash the sky toward roadkill vigilance. The heavy dew reflects the blue-gray sky. Such beauty in that rising golden sphere raises the feeling of joy and dazzles the eye. It's clear to me that life's worth is here. When night bows to day, hope freshly rises. With luck, the day is filled with surprises. Memory. I heard a I heard a door unlatch. I was 8, alone, and sitting in the middle of a yellow blanket of National Geographics. I was in the upstairs bedroom, in the home of my aunt, the stern one, who gave me castor oil. Peering through the crack of my half-open door, I saw the young border lady leave her room and stride quickly down the hall toward me and the bathroom. She was naked. I cannot remember her face, but she was much better than anything I'd seen in those National Geographics. Worry. When I hear "don't worry," it doesn't help me. Worry is one of those slinky words that bends in the middle. As bothersome and unwieldy, it's not a solid emotion. You can get hold of words like hate, love, truth, and grit. Worry is quiet and solitary. You can't offend anyone or embarrass yourself because you just drive yourself crazy. Worry has no limits. It's an equal opportunity disturber. You can worry about polar bears on melting ice caps, the extra pounds you can't seem to lose, or that there will be an idiot in the White House. Or you can worry about when you start to cross the next intersection, there will be some driver heading your way just finishing a text with LOL. Gnats. There, out over my lawn, is a congregation of gnats flying in a beehive formation. I see no leader. Every gnat is so busy dashing in and out, yet never touching each other, just like us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. David Eisbach, folks. I'd like to read you one of my poems, Protester Betty. The story broke in the Friday morning edition of the Sacramento Bee. Friday night, a local TV station ended with the story. Saturday night, it was the top story on the national networks. Sunday morning, TV pundits and international newspapers carried the story. Sportscasters on Sunday's NFL game were talking about him. The subject was a young representative from California named Benjamin Popeye. Although no one had the video of the event, reporters present quoted his every word. The story had been retold so many times along with his picture that the whole world saw in their mind's eye exactly what had happened. Thursday afternoon, Popeye was on the floor of the California State Capitol, making a speech for a colleague's bill being presented for a vote. He was about halfway through his speech when a woman protester began screaming from the back of the chamber. Popeye immediately stopped and was leaning forward, straining to hear what she was saying. The marshals entered and began moving toward her. Popeye spoke into the microphone. "My name is Benjamin. What's your first name, miss, please?" She answered, "Betty." "Good. Betty, I'm going to ask these marshals to take you to my office and make you comfortable. As soon as I'm finished here, I'll be along. I want to hear what you have to say. I work for you, and I have some questions for you too. Are you agreeable?" "Good. Betty, I should be with you in about 20 minutes. The story of Popeye interrupting his speech and the 2 hours that afternoon he spent talking with Betty painfully reminded people how unique this was. And it became a national and an international mirror, a mirror that every other citizen on earth held up to their politicians. The next Monday morning, politicians' phones worldwide were ringing and ringing. Citizens were busy making appointments to talk to their representatives, like Betty. I want to thank you for watching the Central Coast Poetry Shows. I'm Jim Russo, your host. I want to thank my guests, Dennis Richardson and David Eisbach. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again. Good night.
I'm beating up the street tonight. I slept through the natural light, but I'll do it if it feels alright.